Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another episode of the Couch GMs podcast. It is Thursday, July 30th, 2026. I'm your host, George Kurt, joined by the one and only Cody Roadcap. And Cody, I know you're feeling exactly how I am. You're loving all the tweets of people completely overreacting of the first few days of training camp because football's back.
Football is back. We are 1 week away from football on our TVs. Probably not good football, but the Hall of Fame game just
For
over a
football.
week away. So we'll take that. We got the Twitter feed, the X feeds are live, your Facebook groups, however you want to do it. The sleeper chats are going crazy, not a sponsor. Yeah, basically football season's here.
It is. We're getting our fantasy leagues ready for the year, and that includes the Couch GMs World Cup, who we are setting up the championship bracket, but also on this episode we're going to be selecting groups B and C, so make sure you hang around to check that out, especially if you are a part. And we're going to talk some late round flyers before Cody and I, starting next week, jump into all of our mock drafts that we're going to do throughout the entire month of August. So make sure you're subscribed on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok to get even more than you do from the show, and watch those episodes live Thursday nights at 6:30 on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. With that being said, Cody, why don't you jump in and see what's happening? I had to start off with the biggest news of the year. Taysom Hill making a big story on social media saying he will not be returning to the Saints.
Great. Sounds like a Denver Bronco to me.
That's exactly what I said. Honestly, there's mixed reactions of Saints fans being like, well, how are we going to replace all that versatility, to fantasy owners being like, finally he won't salvage touchdowns. Savage all the touchdowns from everybody else on that team that we're hoping is pretty relevant this year.
Yeah, they have potential. They finished the season strong. They had a big contract also. We're going to talk about the Saints, signing Chris Olave today, right before we went live. 4 years, 132 million, I believe 90 million guaranteed. So a big payday for Chris Olave, which some people might have seen that was unexpected after them taking Jordan Tyson in the first round this past year.
Yeah, I mean, a big flip too from when we were thinking about him 2 years ago with the concussion issues. We weren't sure if he was going to be forced into an early retirement. He finishes a full year last year and was effective and cashes in the big payday. I'm surprised to an extent, number one, because of Tyson, and two, because of where he was. But, I mean, he's worthy of the contract if he keeps up the production he had last year.
Yeah, I mean, he's still a young player. He was, he's still a very good player. There was just the health concerns. He got through a season. I mean, anytime he takes a big hit, you're always going to question, like, how long is he going to stay in there? But we've been doing that with Tua for years. He got paid. I'm happy for Chris Olave. He's been one of my favorite players to follow. Frustrating for fantasy, I won't lie. But since coming out of the draft, he was a guy I desperately wanted in the green and gold. It did not happen. He went down to the Bayou, and hopefully he can continue there. And I think it's going to be good for the Saints too. I know for fantasy, it's like you always want like the guy, right? But like to have Chris Olave come in with Jordan Tyson, they lost Taysom Hill like we talked about, but they still have Jawan Johnson. Alvin Kamara came back on a discounted rate. They've got in Travis Etienne, year two of Tyler Show. One day I'll learn how to pronounce his name. But
right. You didn't say ETN right, but that's fine.
It's Etienne for life. But yeah, they could be a fun offense. That's all. So I have to pay attention to that for sure.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking a lot about some of those pieces as we move through mock drafts in the rest of the offseason into your fantasy draft season, etc. Another quick bit of news is the Raiders officially named Kirk Cousins their starter to open camp. They seem confident with being able to roll with him as long as they feel. They're giving Mendoza a very long runway to land into the NFL, but I would not be shocked still if he is in their starting lineup at some point this year.
Yeah, I think it'll all depend on the team, how they're doing, how Kirk's playing. I mean, I think back when Kirk signed his contract, we all assumed he was going to be the starter this season for at least half of it, if not longer. So should help out their weapons. Go ahead and name them.
Brock Bowers.
Okay, I'll give you one. You can go ahead and
You
say
can't
Ashton
forget
Genty
about.
too
You can say
if you
Ashton
want.
Dempsey. No, that was actually going to be my next question. Of like, I know we talked early tight ends versus early quarterbacks in our last show, and you know, there was the uncertainty obviously with Trey McBride, and what happens if they don't, lock up Jacoby Brissett, which that's the next piece of our news. Actually, they did 15.5 mil this year to get him, happy and in the building for the starting lineup. But do you feel better about going out there and putting a third round pick on Brock Bowers, knowing that at least at the beginning of the year he's got Kirk Cousins as that stable quarterback chip?
Sure. I mean, I feel like if you were going to take, a McBride, like I'd rather have McBride over Bowers still again this
Mm-hmm.
year. Um, but if you were going to take one or the other, I don't think you were going to let the quarterback determine which one you would take. Like if you're a Bowers guy, whether it was Fernando, whether it was Kirk Cousins, whether it was whoever their third string is, Aiden O'Connell, then you'll take Brock Bowers. If you're not a early tight end round guy, like they could have said it's Patrick Mahomes, and you're probably not taking Brock Bowers. So I guess the long way of saying the quarterback didn't change my opinion.
Yeah, I guess it was also a harder sell on the backups in Arizona than it was, Mendoza versus Cousins.
Yeah, that's true too. But they got Brissett back on a 1-year deal, so
They did 15.5 for him, like I mentioned. The other two contracts, big contracts that broke, we had Denzel Ward sign a 2-year, $62 million extension to make him the highest paid corner in a per year basis. And then Jalen Carter, defensive tackle for the Eagles, 4 years, 152 to make him the highest paid defensive lineman.
yeah. Shout out to Jalen Carter. That was a big payday. I know there was some trade rumors, especially after they extended Jordan Davis as well earlier this offseason. That is a lot of money tied up to the interior of the defensive line. But I think Carter is worthy of it. He is a disruptor. The way he was played in some playoff games helped them win their Super Bowl. So shout out to him for getting paid. Uh, and we'll just have to see how the Eagles continue to build their team around him with this defense, and that's the way they're going to go. Denzel Ward, great for him too. I guess I should throw that in there since you asked about it.
Yeah, got you. Why don't we jump to the comments really quick?
Yep, let's do it.
Okay. Juice and Pop Show, shout out, and thank you for the kind comment before this. Does rookie running back Mike Jr. get solid usage in Vegas? And then also, how do we feel about the wide receiver room in Buffalo?
I mean, I think for the running back question, I'll say it as like solid usage. I guess for lack of better words, what do you determine solid? Like he'll get mixed in. Like he was a top 100 pick, and they have Genty there. The offensive line needs to improve to make Genty better. But Genty isn't going to be the guy that's going to carry it 100% of the time. So I think he's a good change of pace. He's a good complementary back. He'll steal some touchdowns, so be frustrating at times, and probably I don't know if I'd put him at the level of handcuff status, just because I don't know how much of the Raiders' offense you want to own. Uh, but he would definitely be a name that you would consider in that status. And then for your other question on the Bills wide receiver room, for me, I'm pretty low on it, but I'm not a huge like this is going to be a DJ Moore resurgent guy. I think George, you're a little bit more higher on DJ Moore. Not saying he's like your favorite player like Cole Kmet once was of the Chicago Bears, but he if you're big on him bouncing back, but they still have Josh Allen, so he's going to throw the ball around for sure.
Yeah, so I'm not worried about Mike Washington in the sense of like eating into Genty's carries enough to be like hurt Genty. I'm also not going out there and taking him, Mike Washington before like last couple rounds of the draft is like a handcuff or a flyer if you're trying to talk that way either. So if you're saying solid usage and you're saying like 20% of the snaps like you normally see that backup running back do, and I'm pretty sure it's kind of around where Genty was. I'm trying to remember back to if you follow us on TikTok or on social, I do a stat you need to know for fantasy football every single week, and Genty was near the top in snap percentage most weeks, somewhere around the 80% mark. So I would imagine it still falls similarly, and then he just kind of, Mike Washington falls into that number 2 role as opposed to the Zamir White or whoever it ended up being at the end of last year. Won't lie. Didn't pay a lot of attention to Raiders football at points last year.
Understandable.
Bills wide receiver room, I am basically with you, Cody. I think I am a little bit higher on DJ Moore, but I think it's like Josh Allen's going to get his, and he's going to spread the ball around. And honestly, if I think anybody on that team is going to have a big resurgence in the passing game, it's going to be Dalton Kincaid, not really any of the receivers making a big difference.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. He could be one of those later round tight end players that make a big splash in this upcoming year. Is there any other Bills wide receiver you think that is worth mentioning?
Shakur is going to be on rosters. He's potentially flexible through buys is how I'm kind of treating him in fantasy. But that's nothing special.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Kind of, again, where he was last year, honestly.
Like,
so
I guarantee you 1 week we're going to be talking about, like, Josh Palmer being the waiver wire ad because the waiver wires are a little desperate, and he's had 2 semi-good games of 12 points, half-point PPR, and then you'll be like, if you need a spot start because of Bimageddon, maybe you can look at Josh Palmer, but
I think we've been waiting on Josh Palmer his entire career, and it hasn't hit. So
well,
there's a point where I got off the bandwagon.
He's a big play threat. So, like, you're literally chasing the bomb touchdowns. Maybe Keon Coleman, he gets a bounce back. Keeping Joe Brady, he seemed to have a big, sway on wanting to keep Keon Coleman. So maybe he surprises some people, but I'm not falling for that rabbit hole. I go all in every year on Kyle Pitts. I don't have the capacity to do it for any other player.
That is the most accurate Cody take I've heard in a while, besides the fact that he's going to take 5 receivers in the first 5 rounds in our first mock next week.
Yeah, not to be a spoiler or anything but like that, but when I was doing my my flyers that we're going to get into in a little bit, the amount of running backs I originally had, I was like, you need to do something different.
It's really funny because my original 5, we're going to do 5 each, is even more spoiler. I originally had 5 receivers, and I had to pivot. So
that's because I'm so used to taking wide receivers early and looking for the value at the end.
That's fair. You always are trying to find you're trying to find value running back, so that's just where your mindset goes. That makes sense. All right. I wanted to mention some hold-ins. I'm not really worried about any of these guys, but it is in the news that Jonathan Taylor, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Bijan Robinson are all holding in for contracts right now. I mean, Gibbs and Bijan, I believe, have 2 years left on their deal, so it's not like it's an emergent situation, but you do know that they're going to get some money at some point, and I don't see them missing any kind of significant time in camp, let alone into the season.
I don't think Jonathan Taylor is officially a hold-in. I think they were thoughts of it, but I think he's there, and he's going to practice. I could be wrong.
He's there, and there's questions in the media. I know some Twitter source, and take it with a grain of salt, called him a hold-in, but I don't know if that's the right term. You're right.
Yeah, but I mean, they're all eventually going to get. Taylor's going to be the one that's going to be interesting because he's approaching the 3rd contract for running backs, where Bijan and Jahmyr are approaching the 2nd contract for their rookie running backs, and they're both just like on the waiting for the other so they could get $500,000 more and say they're the highest paid. I imagine I would be willing to bet that within 48 hours of one, the other one signs.
And we've seen that happen with quarterbacks and receivers in the past, so I wouldn't be shocked either.
So,
injury news coming out of camp. Again, a lot of things that we're not going to completely overreact on in one way or another just because it's so early in camp and we're so far away from the regular season. But Falcons had to sign a quarterback. They signed Cooper Rush because their top 2 quarterbacks are currently down starting camp. Penix is not fully recovered from his knee injury from last year yet. He's still in the rehab process. And then Tua had an injury flare-up, and that is literally all the information we got. But
I think it was his back.
Okay. I dug so deep and couldn't find anything.
I'm pretty sure someone said that on Twitter, but again, take that for a grain of salt. It could have been I could have got duped by Adam Schefter.
That's honestly, it's happened more than once, and it'll happen again. So I got you. But interesting because these two are in a quarterback battle coming into camp, and then obviously to start they have a rookie and Cooper Rush as their only two active guys on their roster. So we're going to see maybe the person who gets more reps in camp ends up being the starter to start the season just because they're more up to speed.
Yeah, I mean, they're hoping both those quarterbacks can play 8 games and then get through the whole season. So,
honestly, with how both of their injury histories have been, kind of feels like that's a possibility.
yeah.
Good quarterback injury news. Daniel Jones says he's feeling good. He's been a full go at camp so far, coming back from his torn Achilles. We've seen in the past Achilles injuries in quarterbacks takes away some of the mobility. He was Danny fullback at a time, but I can't say he's someone who completely relies on his mobility. So hopefully he looks more like early last season Daniel Jones coming out of camp. Take it away, Cody.
Yeah, it's only because we just talked about it, but the Bills adding to their comprehensive wide receiver room is adding veteran wide receiver Dante Pettis. So that doesn't make me feel any better or worse, but since we just talked about it, came across the feed, I had to hit the bumper for the first time of the 2026-27 season. So, but yeah, Daniel Jones is back. Good for him. They'll need him. I think the one that I'm paying attention to in that one, and I'll talk a little bit about that, is Alec Pierce, big contract extension, did start on PUP. So we'll see how long he is out for with the Indianapolis Colts.
They definitely made it sound like he's going to be fine, and it's like a few-week situation, but never a good thing when you have your wide receiver one, newly crowned wide receiver one, coming in camp injured already. So, yeah, we'll keep you updated on that one as we hear news as it goes through the rest of the training camp season here. A big one also in San Francisco. Ricky Pearsall had the in and out of the lineup situation last year with his knee. That flared up in preseason here. And now we hear, quote, they are looking into all options. And there are some reports coming out that we could end up in disaster scenario where they aren't sure he's going to play this year. I don't know if that means that he's going to need a knee surgery, if it's just something that needs extended rest. But I don't like that this is something that still lingers after the whole offseason.
No, that's definitely scary. I feel like we spent all offseason talking about Malik Neighbors, who didn't even end up on PUP, and like not even talking about Ricky Pearsall, who we would have thought with Juwan Jennings leaving, the whole Brandon Ayuk, whatever that is. Yes, they brought in Mike Evans, but you would think that there would be an uptick in role for their first round pick, and it feels like the 49ers are already behind the 8 ball when it comes to injuries. So not looking great for San Fran this year.
They've already had a couple, and then another guy they brought in the offseason was Christian Kirk, and he's already, taken time off with an injury here too. The electric substation is cranking at all cylinders again.
Yeah, that's for sure. I was just going to look too, I know they did draft in I believe the second round, Deshaun Stribling, so maybe he is a guy to pay attention to. I know we did the My Guy segment a couple weeks ago. I was talking about Mike Evans because of this, not because I knew of the Ricky Pearsall thing and the extent of it, but just the guy with, Kittle coming back off the Achilles too. Mike Evans is becoming more and more my guy for this season. I know that's hard to say because but new team, over 30 years old, doesn't get as much love as he once did, but I think he could be in for a big season.
If he stays on the field enough, it's him. It's guys that if they stay on the field, they're going to go crazy. Him, Kittle, McCaffrey. And they have enough with those three if they're on the field. It's just we don't have faith that all of them will be for extended periods of time, which is why we're just pumping the brakes. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, it was tough looking at that depth chart earlier, and Stribling does seem like the next best guy. I would think Christian Kirk has a shot to be okay to start the season, and he could end up having a pretty big role, once that comes around if there's no Pearsall. And then the other name that stuck out to me that is lower on their depth chart, but I think would probably make the squad if they're light at receiver, is DeMarcus Robinson.
Yeah, he's bounced around before.
Yeah, but he's been on that team before, and he's been on the Rams, and he's been effective when no one else is around, is the best way I can put it.
Alrighty, and I think that's all the injuries. We want to do one more question before I think it was an Eagles question, so.
Ooh, okay. I know my stuff here, I think. With Dontavian Wicks signing a $10 million deal and drafting Mekhi Lemon, moving up in the draft and all that, does Hollywood Brown see the field a lot, even though he signed for $6 million? I think Hollywood Brown's on the roster bubble, to be honest. I think because he's going to be competing for that receiver 4-5 in my mind. I think the top three of Smith, Lemon, Wicks is kind of locked in from how it sounds in Eagles camp. And there's a good chance that the Eagles are going to try to focus on keeping a receiver that can play special teams. Or, I mean, we saw a couple years ago, they have some big body receivers in camp that can block. And if they're going to still be a run-heavy team, Hollywood Brown might be an odd man out. So I'm not convinced he's going to get on the field much. I'm not convinced he's going to make the roster.
I'm not. I think he's going to make the roster. It might be at wide receiver 4, like you said. It's wide receiver 4-5 for sure. I mean, I think like just looking at their who's available, like who he's competing with, like I mean, I would feel better, like you said, like Britton Covey, like he's their special teams guy. He'll probably make it too, from that wide receiver position. So then you're like looking at him, the retread of Elijah Moore, Johnny Wilson, and there's some other names that I don't need to keep reading the list of names there. But I mean, he did get, a decent payday with that $6 million. It wasn't, not exuberant enough that they can't move off of him. But I just think with the veteran presence that he can bring, and Mekhi Lemons, he's had some injuries. Dontavian Wicks has had some injuries. Smith is a smaller guy. Like, I would not be surprised if Hollywood Brown is just there to kind of like be a veteran in the room, so to speak. Because Smith is definitely a veteran at this point, but he is still on the younger side. I will say, though, and we'll talk about this at cut days too, remember that vested veterans, which Hollywood Brown would, their salaries become fully guaranteed if they're on the roster week 1. So to your point, it would not surprise me if Hollywood Brown becomes cut, signed back to the practice squad, activated week 1, but just as a workaround for their contract situation.
And to try to to flip this to fantasy terms, they're running a Green Bay style offense now. And try to think of when Green Bay had a fully stocked, healthy wide receiver room. Smith is going to be like Watson. He's going to get most of the work. He's a little bit of a stretch the field kind of guy. Wicks is going to fall into his normal role probably. Lemon is going to be Jayden Reed, and they're going to pass the ball all over the yard. They're not going to really have as much of we have 2 guys and that's it kind of offense. So, I mean, whenever you're talking about the 3/4/5 in that offense, they're going to get 300-400 yards. That's not going to be relevant for too much.
Yeah, and obviously we don't play for injuries too, but that's the thing where I think Hollywood Brown has had his own deal with injuries too, but just availability from some of those players on a week in, week out basis. I think it might be a little bit easier on the Eagles side to be like, if this guy is healthy, I play him. If Smith is healthy, I play him. If Smith is out, I'm playing Wicks. If Wicks is out and Smith is out, I'm playing. I think it could be a little bit more structured than just all over the place. But that is a good point to reference Green Bay, since they have their former quarterback coach now as their offensive coordinator.
Yes, definitely. All right, I think I'm good to move on to our late round flyers.
Great. I don't have a bumper.
Cool. So for this segment, we are going to talk about some guys that we have on our radar when we get to the later rounds of fantasy drafts. So Cody and I put together 5 players each. Our reference here, we had to have them at 100 or higher in their average ADP. We got average ADP from Fantasy Pros, which averages multiple different platforms. And they could not be in the top 10 at their position. So that takes away some of those quarterbacks or tight ends that may filter into the early 100s.
I forgot about that rule, but that didn't affect me. So
it did not. So why don't we just go back and forth, Cody? Give me your first late round flyer.
My first late round flyer. All right. Do you want me to start kind of like chalk, or do you want me to start juicy?
It is your group. You do what you feel.
All right. So we'll start a little bit juicy, and we'll kind of reference what we just talked about with the Eagles' weapons, And I'm going to go back to Green Bay. Now, I'm looking at the rankings here. When I did mine, I forgot to switch the tab to half point PPR, so this is standard scoring, but they're only a couple spots off. But when I reference my numbers, there you go, where I'm pretty sure George is smarter than me and does have the half point PPR reference. But Christian Watson, right? He doesn't fall in this category, but he is 67. I love Christian Watson. There's very few fans out there that like Christian Watson more than I do. So he's the guy I would like to have. However, I think we might be sleeping a little bit on Jayden Reed, who is 60 spots lower than him, who has been productive, was productive last year, although he did break his collarbone and miss a good portion of time, but came back, was productive. He's been a guy in the past that you could rely on. He is a slot only wide receiver, which can be a little scary at times just because he's one of the guys coming off the field more and more. And this Packers offense likes to throw the ball around, but they lost Wicks. They lost Romeo Doubs. They have a more certified big three, so to speak, in Christian Watson, Jayden Reed, and Matthew Golden. If you really want to buy low on Matthew Golden, he's at 155. So there's like 90 spots from Christian Watson if you want to take a flyer on the rookie having a big breakout in year 2. So those are the Packers wide receivers obviously are going to be names that I pay attention to. But I think the Jayden Reed 60 spots different from Christian Watson. As much as I love Christian Watson, in terms of value, I think Reed might be the better value.
See, I came into this and I'm like, I'm going to try to find some ways to like argue with Cody. And I mean, there's only so much you can argue. We're talking about guys we're taking in round 12, 13, stuff like that in drafts. Just at this point, you're drafting on feel and upside. And then you come out here and the first person you put on here is my favorite Packers receiver over the last few years, Jayden Reed. So I have not much that I can say to argue, especially when it comes to like if you're playing in full PPR. Reed's always kind of been the guy I like the more because he has the best chance of being the guy on that offense that gets 7-8 catches in a game, especially when he's been healthy. And I think a lot of people forgot about him because he missed so much time last year with the injury. And then when he came back, it was just kind of like all over the place. But I agree with there being a little bit more of like straight lines now in that Green Bay offense. I think we can probably buy in a little bit more, and you're still getting these guys at the value you were getting them at when there was still 6 guys in that offense to catch the ball, and now they're down to like 3 or 4.
Yeah, so just for reference, in 2014 when Jayden Reed played the full season, while it wasn't the most consistent in terms of fantasy scoring, he led all the Packers with 10 fantasy points per game, half-point PPR, was higher than Romeo Doubs, higher than Dontavian Wicks. Those 2 guys are gone. I do think 2 caveats I will add just to play a little bit of devil's advocate here is I think we saw the surgence of Tucker Kraft begin last year, and he's going to be ready to go week 1, and I think he'll eat up some of those plays in the middle of the field into Jayden Reed possible. And I do think Christian Watson being fully healthy coming off the contract, like if this is Christian Watson's first 1,000-yard season, and he puts up 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns and just like becomes the alpha dog, I think that is a possibilities, at least on the wide receiver position in Green Bay.
That is, but even yet, you could tell me that he did that, and you're still going to get good value out of somebody or 2 other people in that offense with how it's run. So even if you're big and bullish on Christian Watson, it's still a great value for Reed and or Golden.
Yeah.
So I do like it, Cody. I'll move on to my first late round flyer, and I'm going to look at the Detroit Lions and the guy who's replacing David Montgomery there. And I know that there's a lot of like heavy feelings one way or the other on this guy. Isaiah Pacheco is now the number 2 in the David Montgomery role in Detroit. And there's no denying that he had a very rough last 2 seasons, but the man runs hard. He's going to get some respect from Big Dan Campbell there. And as much as they are looking at, Jahmyr Gibbs being the workhorse, I think he's going to be close to 80% of the snaps, which he hasn't been before. There's still a good shot that Pacheco is going to eat into a couple of carries, and in that offense, he can still get some touchdowns and be an effective, if not potential flex, he's at least going to be probably one of the better handcuffs in the league.
Yeah, that's a dude I'm not in on. And I think we've talked about this before.
Yep.
He's not my late round flyer. He's not. I'm not taking him. I mean, maybe the value gets too good if we're like, round 16 or something like that of a 14-man league. Maybe I'll consider it. I'm just kidding. I'm a little bit. I'll do a little bit earlier than that, but just not a guy that I'm going to like move a ton of people for. So I was trying to look to pulling up real quick why I'm stalling and rambling, which is never good podcasting audio. Uh, to just see kind of like what the running backs around him were, because I think
Yeah.
that's like a fair thing. So like right around him, sitting at the 146 spot. Ironically, 145 is Khalil Shakir. We can't escape the Buffalo wide receivers. But in terms of running backs, you just missed out on Alvin Kamara and Jonah Coleman. Okay, I can see wanting potential Pacheco there. Then you just missed, and then but Chris Rodriguez right after him at 148. I can see why some people might want to go his way just because of like not knowing if it's him, Bayshell Tootin. There feels like there's more of a direct path for him to get snaps or carries, where it feels like Pacheco's there just to like give Gibbs a breather, and maybe steals a couple touchdowns. Like, so I don't hate it. I see your vision. He's just a guy I'm out on.
Yeah, it's gonna depend on if they really do go all in on Gibbs or not. Because even last year, when they gave Gibbs even more of a runaway than they have in the past, we can still look here. And now I'm gonna stall while I try to find where Montgomery was last year, but he was still at 9.1 points a game, and he was basically a flex play.
Yeah, I don't think there's. I'm putting at like 15% chance in my brain that come halfway through the season, we're like, oh, I feel okay playing both Pacheco and Gibbs, like we did with
That's
David
fair.
Montgomery.
That's fair.
And maybe that's just how bad the last 2 years. Like, I think Pacheco's lost a step, and he was never the fastest guy. He still runs hard, but I think he's lost a step. He's easier to take down. Like, maybe he'll prove me wrong. Maybe he'll bounce back. Their defense also isn't very good, and they're going to be behind a lot.
Which isn't going to affect Gibbs. We know that.
Correct.
All right. I think you probably have a running back you would argue more than me. So go ahead.
Yeah, my next running back on the list, I kind of feel bad for taking him because he's one of the big movers of switching from standard to half point PPR, and that is Jonathan Brooks, the running back for the Carolina Panthers. In standard scoring, he's 128. Half point PPR, he's all the way up to 101. So he still qualifies according to our rules, but he's a lot closer to that 100 mark. And I think I like him 20 picks later more than I do at pick 100 just because of the unknown. But I think that's what's so enticing about him is the unknown. Coming off of, multiple knee injuries, how much is still left in the tank? What can he get done? With that said, I'm still looking at the half point PPR right now, just the guys that are right after him, which is why I would take a flyer on him at this point. Kenny Gainwell, we saw what he did in Pittsburgh. He's now in Tampa Bay this year. You have the Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason battle. Which one do you want there? Like, and the same can be said with Bill Krosky-Merritt. Like, so just a bunch of like what unknown kind, or there's a lot of guys there that like, if I can get 12 points a week out of them, like I feel like I hit a home run. Where like Jonathan Brooks is like, while it's the floor is way lower, the ceiling is also way higher, and I think that's why I would tend to take a flyer on him on some of those other veterans that are right there behind him.
I like him because we think that there's a shot that he can go out there and steal a starting job. And when you're getting it, in the hundreds, that's great. But if he keeps rising up boards and he doesn't, fit as a late round flyer anymore and he's a mid round pick, I think then I'm going to start liking the fact that he's up there because he's pulling down Chuba Hubbard, who is the starter. And Chuba's such an interesting case because last year he started pretty well. He got hurt. Rico Dowdle did so well that he demanded the carries. Once Dowdle cooled off, Chuba did very well and then missed another week, and then Dowdle was right back in there. So, like, in games where Chuba had more than 15 carries, he averaged, like, I think it was somewhere around 16 or 17 half-point PPR points a game. He still had it. He just wasn't getting the workload he was getting, and Some of it was injury, and some of it was Dowdle was the hot hand. So you're taking a lot of risk if you're going to put a mid-round pick into Brooks. If you're going to get him in the late rounds, I like it. But I like even more that he is now pulled on ADP boards, Chuba Hubbard all the way down into running back 28.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sometimes we say, like, find the value of, the riser, the young player that's 60 spots, but also take advantage of when a high riser that's proven nothing in the NFL is taking down a veteran that could be a solid piece. And I also think, too, when it comes to Jonathan Brooks, like, your team build as you're building out your draft, right, like, plays a factor into it. Do you have a solid running back option? Or did you go wide receiver heavy, like I tend to do, and you need one of those guys that just get you 12 points because you need the points. You can't roll the dice with, am I going to get a running back with 3, 4? Like, you need the point. So team build also plays a factor when you're looking at these late round flyers.
Yeah. Just to give you an idea too, so Chuba Hubbard is going one running back behind Jalen Warren. We're not super high on Jalen Warren, and one running back ahead of R.J. Harvey, who Cody and I both agree isn't even the starter in Denver, and he's still rated over the other backs there. So,
alrighty, your turn.
All right, I'm gonna go to Seattle, and their new addition in the middle of the year last year, wide receiver Rashid Shaheed, and I can't even say it. He was still, getting acclimated in the offense. He used him in some creative ways, and it seemed like this offseason Seattle was making a point that they're going to work Shaheed into the game plan a lot more often now that he, has more time in the offense and knows the scheme. And obviously, there's a lot of different things you can do with him other than just stretching the field. So getting him at 139, you can almost take him in the last 2 rounds of your fantasy draft. And you have a potential wide receiver 2 on a team that, is a run-heavy team, but who else there besides JSN can you think of that would take away a lot of targets?
Why am I blanking on his name? A.J. Barner. The joke has been a lot.
Rashid Shaheed.
I mean, are you going to sleep on Cooper Kupp like that too?
How impressive was Cooper Kupp last year, and then add another year on the age?
I mean, just saying.
Yeah.
Jake Bobo? Torrey Horton? Not Tim?
Jake Bobo is a Seattle folk hero, I'm pretty sure.
So, I just had to throw some names at you.
Yeah,
I'm not saying I disagree with your pick. And he's so late in the draft. I mean, 139, if you're in a 10-man league, like...
That's your last pick before kickers and defenses, or just defenses if you don't play with kickers like Cody wants.
That's how it should be. So, yeah, a guy you can cut in 2 weeks if it's all for nothing.
Yeah. And a guy who we've seen in New Orleans is a one-play touchdown. So if they work him in the offense more and he can get you 5 or 6 catches a game, you got a pretty good shot he gets a touchdown a lot of weeks.
All right, you want me to do mine? Next one?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think I talked about this a couple weeks ago on this very podcast. I'll bring it up here again. I know late round quarterbacks are a thing. We tend to, and you can get guys like Matt Stafford. Heck, you can get Pat Mahomes this year because of his injury when he's, been cleared to practice. So that's all fun and games too. But if I'm taking like a Joe Burrow early with his injury history, I'm looking at a guy, last round pick, definitely will be there, or a priority waiver wire ad as we head into week 1. Malik Willis. We saw what he did in his limited reps last year, not just throwing the ball, but running the ball. I know there's definitely questions about the offensive pass catchers in Miami. How much can they, keep up with him? But his legs are a big reason why I think he'll still be fantasy relevant. A guy we're talking about streaming, from time to time when, the matchups are easier and whatnot. So, and he gets to play the Jets a couple times. He's going to, I think Malik Willis is definitely a guy that maybe you beat the waiver wire rush and go out and play him. Not a guy I'm going to start week 1, but definitely a guy I want to have on my roster with my last pick of the draft, or the second to last pick.
It's just my biggest argument with him. I think the talent's there for him's sake, but like there's a lot of other late round guys I like that I might feel more comfortable with. Like he's going right around where Baker's going. Do I feel more comfortable with Baker? Maybe. And maybe a lot of it's to do with who does he have to give the ball to that's not named Devon Achane?
Devon Achane.
And I love Devon Achane even more than the next guy. But like
Look, I know this was a heck of a throwback, but I watched the Miami Dolphins play with Ronnie Brown as their quarterback. I'm not saying Malik Willis is a running back. He can definitely throw the ball.
Didn't they beat Brady with the
yes.
Wildcat, essentially? That's so good.
So, like, I think I hear what you're saying about, like, the guys that are, like, around him and ADP and stuff like that, right? Like, his current ADP is QB 21, right? So, even if in a 10-man league everyone takes 2 quarterbacks, he should still be there. And a lot of people don't take 2 quarterbacks. But, like, Tyler Struck is right there. Jordan Love. I mean, Jordan Love was third in MVP voting last year, and he's down here. Jared Goff, he gives you nothing with running ability, but he's, put up some big passing yards. The Bo Nix experience. Like, those are the guys right ahead of him. I think in fantasy, when they talk about rushing ability and the lack of weapons that we're talking about with the Dolphins, I think there's a real possibility that, Malik Willis becomes a valuable asset just because of how much, like if he's averaging 60 yards a game running the ball, that's a touchdown. So that's kind of where I'm at with, him.
If we're thinking his rushing ability has that high of a ceiling, I'm 100% with you, because then that's putting him up there with, the upside of Kyler, who's another person who's right above that group that you're talking about now.
I think his rushing upside is better than Kyler.
At this point in his career, probably. But I also, I think 60 yards a game is a little bit high. But, I mean, I guess it's within the realm, and maybe you know more than I do. You've seen him a little bit more being a Packers fan because he was there for a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all depends on the offense. But, even when he played his couple games for the Packers, it became a very much like his first game, they ran the ball 40 times. A lot of that was Josh Jacobs and stuff, but he was a big part of the read option. That game against Baltimore last year, he had 2 rushing touchdowns because Jordan Love was out and Baltimore ran all over the Packers, literally. But he was a highlight for that game. I just think there's, as someone who has watched him spot start the last couple seasons, this isn't the same Malik Willis that we saw in Tennessee. He's definitely defined his game a little bit. And, yeah, maybe 60 rushing yards is high, but the weeks he doesn't get 60, maybe he does squeak in for a rushing touchdown. So that's all. I think he's just a fun, high upside kind of guy.
Okay. I like it. You convinced me a little bit, especially because, it's hard to nitpick just because we're talking about guys that are so low in the draft. So, you're ready for me to move on to my next?
Yes, I was trying to find out how many rushing yards he had last year.
Gotcha.
But, yep, we're good to do your next pick.
Okay. I'm going to start this one with a quiz. Do you know who the second highest scoring wide receiver on the Pittsburgh Steelers was behind DK Metcalf last year? Go.
Wide receiver?
Yeah.
Calvin Austin III.
It was Calvin Austin. Do you know how many points per game he got in fantasy?
6.8.
You're over the top. It's 5.
Okay.
In 14 games. So, he played most of the year. But they have a future Hall of Famer at quarterback who I don't believe is, the same that he was before. But he was not as bad as, the wide receivers that they put out there for him last season. DK Metcalf still scored 10.5 in half PPR, and I think I was not impressed. Like, I don't think he was as good as I remembered him being when he was in Seattle. So they brought in another wide receiver into that room that has finished as a flex or wide receiver 2 most years of his career. He finished ahead of DK Metcalf in total points last year when he was with Indy. I have Michael Pittman, who is probably the highest of all of our guys here. He's going at 107 on average. So that's still round 11. I think it would be round 9 or 10 in a 12 team. And with how unimpressed I am with DK Metcalf and how much room to grow the Pittsburgh passing offense has, I think there's a good shot he can finish as a solid flex play.
No notes. Love it.
Cool.
He was number 6 on my list, but I switched him for my next guy.
Okay.
Which is Josh Downs, the guy replacing, not necessarily replacing. He was there last year, but going to fill in a role that Michael Pittman left. And I mentioned at the top of the show the Alex Pierce on PUP. How does that all play out? Daniel Jones being healthy, being at 130. Josh Downs, we've talked about as streamer before. In the previous seasons, when healthy, he's put up some decent numbers. So I like Josh Downs as kind of like same, you take Michael Pittman in a new place, I get the guy that's replaced him in his old place. I like that as well.
And if I had to guess a 6, I was looking at Josh Downs as one of my potentials, and then I realized you had him on your list, so I took him off. But because I'm also, like you said, worried about the other injury in that wide receiver room to Pierce. So,
yeah, I like that. Also,
cool.
Just a real quick throwback to Malik Willis. In the 2 games last year that he played more than 7 snaps, he had a 40-yard rushing game and a 60-yard rushing game. So 40 to 60 yards was his average last year.
This makes me feel a little better about Achane because, I mean, there's not a whole lot to get pressure off of Achane on that offense, but the read option might.
Yeah. And don't forget about good old Tutu Atwell.
Wide receiver 1, Tutu Atwell. Who would have thought we'd say that in 2026?
Wide receiver 1, Jalen Tolbert.
I don't think I would have said that in 2026 either, so you're not helping.
My bad.
All good. I'll go to my next guy, and we're getting pretty low on the board. I'm down at 163 for my next one, and it's Tampa Bay wide receiver Jalen McMillan. Now, I know that he had a solid year last year, and a lot of it had to do with injuries, but he's slotted in as their wide receiver 3. We haven't seen a whole lot out of Chris Godwin over the last few years, and I mean, injury is part of that. We can't, draft to injury, but McMillan got a connection with Baker Mayfield. And if you're telling me if they play 3 wide receiver, he's going to be on the field, he's going to at least get snaps, I don't see him completely disappearing from this offense. And I'm probably also speaking as somebody who's not as high on Emeka Egbuka as some people. A lot of people bought into that early season start he had last year, and then when he cooled off, I feel like where he cooled off is probably closer to baseline Emeka Egbuka than where he kind of caught the league by storm to start the season. So there's targets going to McMillan. What was that?
That's kind of crazy. That's disrespectful.
So I think taking McMillan at the end of your draft has a decent shot at some upside.
I don't hate the Jalen McMillan pick. He was another guy I considered.
Mm-hmm.
I do not enjoy this Emeka Egbuka, whatever you're going to call it, downplaying of his talent and ability. Maybe 46 ADP is a little high for you. Okay, sure. My other guy was, I was debating Chris Godwin if I wanted to go down that round hole again, but round hole. What am I saying?
He's got a square peg.
Yeah, whatever. If I wanted to go down that, I'm just moving on from that
Rabbit
phrase.
hole. Got you.
Thank you. I couldn't get there. But he was a little bit too high. But I did think the McMillan thing too is an interesting, like true and late round flyer. Uh, it's just if the other two are healthy, you're looking at a wide receiver 3.
And the money tells you that, but okay, ignore Ibuka. He's got wide receiver 1 targets. Is it just guaranteed that Godwin at his age now is still their 2? I mean, he's a slot, which, some teams are 2 is in the slot, but still.
I think Godwin is still the number 2. I know he's been banged up. But he was healthy last year. I don't have his stats in front of me for what was last year, but going into the season healthy this year, I think he still has the potential to, have a solid season in year 30. Does McMillan start to pass him? Sure. I'll take that. And that's where I think you're right in saying one's in the mid 80s and one's at 163. Like, that's a pretty big gap. Maybe I'll pass on Godwin and take the flyer on the younger player at the end of the round. I just wanted to note, like, play the devil's advocate. Like, it is a wide receiver 3 as we go into the season.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess a lot of it also is like, we were talking about one guy in the 80s and one guy lower, and is there another guy around Godwin that you'd rather have? And, like, Sutton could be that guy. I'm very hit or miss on Sutton. Michael Wilson I'd definitely rather have than Godwin. Parker Washington, probably rather have him than Godwin.
Like, you haven't said any name yet that I didn't want over Chris Godwin.
Mekhi Lemon's the next one. That one's probably a little touchy, but maybe.
Maybe. They're probably pretty even.
And then next is Ricky Pearsall, who might start falling down boards because of the injury thing we talked about earlier. Yep. So, yeah.
For sure. I love when draft boards still have, like, players like... I know they have to like, not completely jank up the system. But, like, Stephon Diggs down here and Deebo Samuel, Tyreek Hill, all still in the top 170 despite not even being on a team.
And we're taking guys as late round flyers who are ranked behind those guys in some cases. So, reminder, don't always just go off your rankings. Do your research.
For sure. And then that'll lead me into my fifth and final guy. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of stealing this idea from another podcast. I forget who it was. Probably the Fantasy Footballers. Maybe it was a local guy. Maybe it's just a video on Twitter. But they got me thinking, and I agreed with it, and I'm going to share it as well. Your last round pick should probably be Keaton Mitchell of the Los Angeles Chargers. One of their free signings. I know people remember him in Baltimore for his, couple big games before he tore his ACL, and we thought he was going to, start to eat into Derrick Henry stat. I know Kaimi Vidal had a really strong season last year when Omarion Hampton got hurt. And this isn't me saying Mitchell is going to push Hampton for his starting role. I don't think that's the case whatsoever. But Hampton did suffer an injury last year. That has to be in the back of your mind. Running backs, are always, by committee these days. And Keaton Mitchell is fast. And their new offense coordinator loves fast players. Like, I think he could be a person that becomes a big play threat in the Mike McDaniel offense, becomes a slasher. We hope Omarion Hampton takes the H-hand role, the H-hand step. Yeah. But if he doesn't, and, this comes back to the H-hand Raheem Mostert split, and Mitchell was Raheem Mostert because he's a fast slasher, like, getting him in the late rounds is a guy I'm going to take a flyer on pretty much in every draft that I can and see how the first couple weeks unfold.
Well, and I think that was the year that of the two backs being relevant, because that was the year that Montgomery and Gibbs were both playable. And in that year, Mostert and Achane were both playable. Like, Achane wasn't the player he is now, but he was a flex option every single week. So I don't think it's crazy to think there's a shot that Mitchell is a flexible player if he's going to fit that well into that scheme. When you consider how not only McDaniel has used two backs in the past, but Harbaugh likes using two backs too. It was a split between Harris and Hampton to start the year, and then Harris got hurt. So,
yeah. That's a good point. You got one more.
I do, and you've convinced me on the take Keaton Mitchell in your last round. But if you have Cody drafted before you in the last round, especially if you're drafting early, maybe this doesn't work if you get a little bit more info as we get closer to the season. But if you're drafting early, I think you should leave the last round with James Conner, with the shot that he gets traded to go somewhere and be an impactful player, whether that be for an injury or a team that's running back needy, because we know Arizona is not going to carry all those backs. And James Conner has the best shot of going somewhere and being an impactful fantasy player. So,
No, I think James Conner is a very good person or a very good late round play. I like what you said about being early. Like we always advocate, draft Labor Day weekend. Labor Day weekend sometimes hard to get everyone together for your draft. Do the weekend before, especially now there's only 3 weeks of the preseason. Like definitely draft later when you can. But some leagues start up. Some people want to start making trades. But do the James Conner, early now, and maybe he gets moved at the trade deadline, and then we'll reevaluate where he's at if a guy that someone else's running back gets injured and whatnot. And I also think it's worth noting, and we joked about overreacting to quotes, and I'm going to paraphrase Nathaniel Hackett, the offensive coordinator for the Arizona Cardinals, but he name dropped when he was asked about Jeremiah Love. He name dropped James Conner, being about excited for him too, and that Jeremiah Love is very much a rookie. Again, it's the first day of camp. That's expected. I don't think they draft Jeremiah Love with pick 3 for him to be behind James Conner, but maybe going into the season even, this is more of a 50-50 split than people are expecting.
yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. We didn't even mention Algier in that lineup, too. Like, it could be ugly. I still feel like Love's going to be the guy. But, I mean, it's just as much of a shot that Connor gets traded and goes somewhere where he can be a good 1B or 2 that has some impact on another team as he does having a solid split here too. So
yeah, I continue to say pay attention to the Packers and the Cardinals. They have a joint practice the last week and they play in the final week of the preseason. Their personnel people are going to get an up close look at these running backs. We know the Josh Jacobs thing is not going to be resolved. It doesn't sound like it'll resolve before the season, so he probably isn't going to miss time, but it's still going to be looming there. Their backup running back is Marshawn Lloyd, who has played 10 snaps in his 3 seasons. Very electric player, but can't stay healthy. So one of those guys. And if James Conner gets traded to the Packers, he probably doesn't move up that much if Josh Jacobs is still, expected to play a full season, right? But if he gets traded to a team that loses their number 1, like then maybe that becomes a different conversation. So,
yeah, I mean, you can almost even say this on take your pick. Like if you like Trey Benson too, could be another one. I think Connor has the biggest chance of having an impact, but like there's a couple of guys on that team that had solid seasons last year because they were needed that could go somewhere and be a solid backup. And Green Bay is a perfect example of even if nothing happens to Jacobs, they probably could use some experience carries in that backfield.
for sure. And then the last waiver wire, since Juice and Pop Show has been hanging out with us the whole time, he's saying Calvin Ridley could be a steal. If you're buying into that Cam Ward year 2 hype, obviously they took Carnell Tate in the top 5. They brought in Wan'Dale Robinson. Maybe people are forgetting that Calvin Ridley does exist. Maybe he could be a steal as well.
Their wide receiver room's at least looking better than it did last year. They're giving a little bit more to Cam Ward. So
maybe they'll win 5 games.
I don't know what their win over under is, but 5 seems fair. It's probably 4.5. Could be
well,
5.5.
George, that's the 1 hour mark. We got through our late round flyers. We got through news. Football is back, but I think we still got to talk about the Couch GMs World Cup.
Cody even changed the background. It is the season. So if you don't know what the Couch GMs World Cup is, this is our 4-year fantasy football experiment experience. We never really locked down this tagline, but we have a 30-man league that we have been playing for 3 years, and the top 10 are now locked into the final, where they are playing for the jackpot, for the trophy. And I can bring up the stats if Cody wants to clear the overlay here for me. So, Kempy, friend of the show and our reoccurring host, Shelby, Reed, Sean, Jason, Josh S., Andrew T., Anthony, Ryan, and Bree are going to be in the final. They are going to get to pick their draft spots for the final based on that ranking right there. So if you can't tell, it goes by championships won and then win percentage. That's why Bree has the top ranking, as she was the wild card but did not have a championship, so that she is the 10 seed. But today, what Cody and I are going to be doing is hitting the good old wheel of names to put together groups B and C for the year.
All right, I got the wheel of names up.
So as we've done in the past, Cody's going to commish Group B. I'm going to commish Group C. Kempy is going to be the one commissioning Group A this year, as he is the closest to the show that is in the final. So,
yeah, I mean we're still commissioning it. He just has a friendly co-manager of the Couch GM's logo.
Yes, pretty much.
But so are we doing? How are we doing this? 1-1 or first 10 names in Group B, the second 10 in Group C?
1-1. We got to make this dramatic.
All right. Here we go. I left the noises on. I left the cheers. Who's joining me in Group B? The wheel goes on and on. Cam, welcome to Group B.
All right. I love that you still got the cheers.
You ready for number 2?
I am. This is going to Group C with me. Is it somebody I've played with 3 years already and going to be 4? I don't know. Oh, it wouldn't be a year if I didn't get to play with Marcus. The Fantasy Godfather's still a little upset he didn't make it to the final. I know that.
I like it. All right. Are we doing snake draft or is this back to me?
Let's make it a snake draft. It's a little different than we usually do.
All right. So I hope you're writing this down because
I am.
Group C as well.
And I get Neil.
All right.
It's a good time.
All right. I'm up for 2. The wheel is spinning. It goes round and round. Who will it land on? The sometime recurring guest, Tyler Snyder. Welcome to Group B. Sorry that you are no longer in Group A. Better luck in year 2 of the thing, and maybe you'll get back to Group A.
Next one for Group B.
Oh, and Levin. Just for him. All right.
Just for him. Okay.
So far, Group B is the league of record, minus Marcus.
I get Mikey B, so I'm not going to get any bills. I'm just kidding.
And you get Nick.
All right.
Already,
it is not the league of record in Group B, by the way.
I know, I forgot about Cam. I'm sorry, Cam. That's right.
But you get Brandon, who's also in the league of record, so.
All right, this is going just dandy.
So as a reminder for you guys in B and C, you're playing for your buy-in back, basically, in this year, even though you didn't make the final.
Plus $10.
Yes, sir.
And I get Coleman.
Coleman to B. All right.
All right, you're up for 2 more. Looks like you're going to get Doug. And next you're going to get Andrew S.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right. I'm up again. Group B. Not that I'm playing favorites. I am hoping for Colin here. Former boss. Never got to play with him in the last 3 years. And the wish comes true. Let's see if I can do this
someone
again.
you haven't played with yet in the 3 years so far is actually probably pretty rare. We played with pretty much everybody, I'm sure.
All right. Well, Let's see if I can get Sheeler then. Throwback to former League of Record member.
Yeah.
It's close. If I'd have called 2 in a row, that would have been pretty awesome.
That would have been.
All right, you're up for 2. And you get David.
Okay. 4 names on the wheel left now. Got a pretty big piece yourself here.
And Hayden.
Okay. Final 2 for you, Cody.
So, well, final 2, or this spin will determine the top 9 for each, and then it will determine who's in who for. All right, so I get Josh W. And then me. I'm spinning for Group B, so whoever it lands on is Group B. The other person goes to Group C. Let's find out. Last minute change to Greg. I realize some people are probably listening to the podcast and like, you need to do better of it, building anticipation. And Sheila, I don't want you to get left out. So for the final spin of Group C, who's it going to land on? Sheila.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't think I was going to land on Sheila.
I wasn't sure either. Good old Wheel of Names.
Good old Wheel of Names. There's our groups for year 4. Reminder, Group A, you are the Champions League. You're going to be contacted closer to the draft date to pick your draft spots. You get to pick your draft spot in your ranking order. It does not mean like Kempe being number 1 gets to be pick 1. He can pick where he wants to go.
That's too complicated. 30 minutes before it opens.
And that's how we do it, but Cody's going to fight for that the whole way through in the second iteration. I'm sure it's coming starting next year.
Yeah, and if you want to play, shoot us a DM.
Yes, sounds good. We're thinking about making some changes if you have not, if you've been watching how we've done this so far. But we are also switching over to Sleeper, so anyone that is listening in that is in the World Cup, we were going to be sending you some new invites to these leagues on Sleeper because NFL Fantasy is no more.
Yep, we'll also post it in the group and tag the people to join which link.
Yes, sir.
Sweet. Anything else you want to add?
No. I will say, though, I was feeling the itch earlier about thinking about some mocks, so I'm excited that we're going to jump into it. And I don't know if I've told you this, but I'll tell the fans this as well. We are confirmed down on a date for Kempe to do the Chaos mocks. That was one of our favorites last year. Looking forward to it. It's coming next month. Make sure you're subscribed to check it out.
You want to drop the date so your co-host can know? Make
Nope.
sure he doesn't plan any trips?
I believe it is going to be the 20th of August.
All right.
Just confirming that is a Thursday. It is 20th of August.
That sounds like fun. So I'll take that. I was starting to get the itch too, but I have a midnight showing, not midnight because they don't do that anymore, of Spider-Man, Brand New Day. So by the time you're listening to that, I've already seen the movie. So that's what I'm thinking about. But once I get past that, it's on to everything football related. So we'll be ready for next week.
Yes, sir.
All right. Anything else you want to add, my friend?
No.
And that is my cue to hit this button. Music starts playing in your ears, in your car, wherever you may be. But thanks for checking out another episode of the Couch GMs podcast. As always, we are live through the rest of the offseason on Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, which also means we are 1 month away from 2 episodes a week as we get closer and closer to the NFL season. As always, follow us on social media everywhere at the Couch GMs. I'm Cody Roadcap. That's George Kurth. We'll talk to you all next week.